Welcome back, Flare community. I hope you're all well and having an incredible start to your week. And today we've actually got a really interesting topic of conversation, very much highly anticipated, and that is all to do with Firelight. So there is a deep dive just about to happen in about 10 minutes time. So if you are watching this at a later date, feel free to skip forward 10 minutes or so, and we're going to be listening into this chat between Firelight and the builders of Firelight, and they're going to be talking about everything that we need to know about the upcoming launch of XRP on the Flare network through their platform. Of course, this has been built by Centaura, which is an absolutely behemoth of a community, or sorry, a entity, and that's what we're going to be listening into today. So we look here, Firelight join our upcoming X space, Firelight 101. Everything you need to know about Firelight before it launches. And that is today. We're going to be listening in. And big hello to everyone in the comments. We've got Tarzan, we've got Danny, we've got Bernard too. Yep, it is a Monday, a great start to the week. And we've also got some other news coming later this week or midweek. And I'll talk about that in a second because I know what you guys are thinking. When is this going to launch? When are we going to see Firelight launch? Well, to be honest, there is a precursor, and that is the launch of the F Asset protocol, F Asset version 1.2 on the Flare network. And we did actually have an update pretty recently about when that will be. For those of you who are holding Songbird, there is good news because there is the launch of the F Assets version 1.2 coming to Songbird this week, August the 20th, which is in 2 days' time. It is on Wednesday. This is going to be absolutely incredible. And you may be wondering, when is this coming to the Flare network? Well, we got this post here as well that I posted quite some time ago. I'm just looking on the right here. Version 1.2 coming on Songbird, as we just discussed. It is currently being audited. This is actually passed. This was on August the 9th. This is concluded. We've got the audit results back and all seems good. And it's launching on Songbird, as I said, on Wednesday this week. And version 1.2 is actually going to be launching after a competition for auditing of this version 1.2 from Code for Renner. And when does that happen? Well, it actually starts on the 18th, which is today, and it lasts about 1 month. The end date is the 22nd of September. Hugo said that the F Asset version 1.2 is going to be launching on Flare shortly after, providing that there is no major bugs found within the code base, which, considering it has been audited already, I think it's quite a safe bet. Now, this is when the competition ends. It's not a hard date. I see a lot of people misinterpreting words. This is the earliest that F Assets could launch. It does not mean that this is the date F Asset launches. It means that it is the earliest point in which it could launch. Okay? Not a hard date. This is just something to consider before you get a bit too rustled up about a deadline being passed, because there is no deadline. It's just saying, Hugo is saying that there's potential to launch on this date because that's when the audit ends. Right, what are we going to be listening into today? It's going to be all about Firelight, and something that I'm very excited about. It's a platform that basically allows you to utilize a non-yielding asset, which is XRP, which is going to be an F asset, to earn a yield. And you may be wondering how, or how does it even work? Well, we're just going to run through this really quickly before the space starts. And this is from the Masari report. This is a bit of a overview, a bit of a summary of this report, which talks about the Flare network and also expands on FXRP and FXRP-Fi. Okay, so, right. Masari's latest Pulse report spotlights Fleur emergence as the network turning XRP into a powerful engine for decentralized finance. With trust minimized infrastructure, real yield opportunities, and radically composable data layer, Fleur is laying the foundation for a new era of cross chain value creation. And it all starts with FXRP or XRP-Fi. Now, just to highlight something here, version 1.2 of the F asset protocol is just starting with XRP. But we do know that other F assets are coming too, and it's going to expand the scope of the Fleur network massively. We've got Bitcoin, which has been confirmed, Dogecoin, and I'm sure many others too. Okay, let's just have a quick look at this chart here, which summarizes how F assets are created. We've got the XRP ledger here. This is the minter, someone that holds XRP, and a redeemer as well. What you do is if you want to mint FXRP, you interact with the F asset protocol on the Fleur network. You send F assets to an agent and they reserve that or keep it in reserve as collateral as well. And you basically receive the FXRP on the Fleur network. Now, this is a very simplified diagram, but it works the other way as well. These assets, XRP and FXRP, are exchangeable one-to-one at any time. And yeah, you basically go one way, you mint FXRP, and then you can redeem XRP back onto the originating chain. In this case, it is the XRP ledger. Now, I don't want to get in the weeds about F assets because today we're going to be focusing on staked XRP. And we're just going to run through this this process here, this diagram. But before we do, let's have a quick read. Fleur is bringing liquid staking to XRP with the upcoming launch of staked XRP on Firelight. Users can stake FXRP in Firelight's launch vault and receive staked XRP at a ratio of 1-to-1. This is an ERC20 token that remains liquid and usable through DeFi while the underlying XRP contributes to secure secured services. So this is similar to staked FLR, where you get a derivative of the originating token, which is WFLR, or in this case FXRP, and you can use this in DeFi protocols while getting the benefits of FXRP. Right, let's quickly run through this because we are approaching the time in which it starts, which is in a couple of minutes. This is the staked XRP architecture, right? We just went through the F asset protocol, and what happens is the user can deposit or withdraw and interact with the F asset protocol and basically get themselves some FXRP. This is not what you're going to be using in the Firelight platform. You first need to create staked XRP. So very similar to this process. What you do is you have your FXRP, you send it to the Firelight vault where you can stake or unstake it interchangeably at a ratio of 1-to-1, and you go into this LST contract, which is a liquid staking contract, or liquid staking token contract. From there, you mint and redeem staked XRP. So if you've got one staked XRP, you can get one FXRP, which means you can get one XRP. These are all 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. And once you have a staked XRP, you can interact with all of these yield opportunities, DEXs, lending, yield markets, and secured service networks. Now, something to note here is that staked XRP is the only version of XRP that you can interact with secured service networks, SSNs. And that's a new term that has been developed from the Firelight team. If you are holding FXRP, however, you can still participate in some of these opportunities, decentralized exchanges from, I guess, providing liquidity. You've got lending and yield markets too. So that is pretty much a summary of how it's going to work. But I think in this space that we're going to be listening to, it's going to be quite a good overview of what's happening, and maybe we'll get some nuggets. I do see that they have just started here. So what I'm going to do is come over here, give it a bit of a refresh, and we're going to listen in. Of course, the first couple of minutes of these Twitter Spaces, X Spaces are normally introductions, but we're going to jump in now and listen in. I'll be in the chat, but I'm going to be turning my mic volume down, and hopefully we get some good discussion about Firelight. So let's jump in and give it a listen.
Disconnected from DeFi. Firelight isn't just another staking protocol. In phase 2 of our launch, your staked tokens will ensure economically secured services, moving beyond the security-focused narrative of staking that we're all used to. Instead of just securing networks, Firelight lets XRP holders stake their tokens to power real DeFi projects, like insurance pools, RWA liquidity hubs, and other high-impact primitives to generate real economic yield.
Okay, guys.
Sorry, we'll just wait for Gabriel. Just give us a couple of minutes. Thanks.
Yeah, so guys, the host is speaking, but very briefly. I say in the past 2 minutes, she spoke in 10 seconds. So it's not that the sound isn't coming through.
I can hear you. All right. So sorry for the technical difficulties. All right, so let's start with the big picture. Why XRP and why now? What makes this the right moment to bring XRP into DeFi through restaking? Gabriel?
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. Not as often on Spaces, usually in the background doing the research. But in terms of XRP, Why now? I think the why now has kind of always been something, XRP has been wanting to move this direction. I think people in the XRPL, they're very excited about having new types of ways to use their XRP. The why now, I think, is really related to Flare, who have been building this bridge to bring XRP to Flare via the F Assets portal. And essentially, this is going to allow the XRP, which has really been underrepresented in the DeFi community space, to be used in additional blockchains where you can program smart contracts that allow for more complex designs and systems to come on board. So we've seen this with Bitcoin, with a lot of Bitcoin moving into the Ethereum space and being used for DeFi purposes there. And with XRP being the third largest crypto asset, it only made sense that it was going to come on board at some point. So finally, those stars are aligning, which is where we are today.
Interesting. Okay. A lot of people have been saying that the restaking space is getting quite crowded with Eigenlayer, Symbiotic, and others. So what's the advantage of Firelight and how is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any narrative, you'll see several different players come in to the space, and that doesn't mean that only one will succeed. I mean, if you look at the lending space for protocols, you can see there's Aave, there's Camino, there's Morpho, there's Euler. There's a lot of big participants that all have found their niche in the market. So I think all of these different protocols can be living together in the same place without any difficulties. One of the advantages, and I think the main thing that distinguishes Firelight from the others, is that we are working closely with Flare on utilizing these assets that have been underrepresented. So XRP definitely, but there are other cryptocurrency assets that have been around for a long time and haven't seen a lot of use cases, or the use cases have been quite narrow in their scope. But still, a lot of capital is locked into these assets, and so being able to use this capital is a big unlock. So with the F Assets portal, we're able to access the capital of those assets directly, and then use that for the staking / restaking that would be happening on Firelight. So where Eigenlayer and Symbiotic are more focused on ETH, and Babylon, if people are familiar with, are more focused on using security via Bitcoin. Firelight is, I think, a lot more flexible on the assets it can use. So XRP is definitely the first target, but this could be expanded to other assets that don't have as much traction in the DeFi world. So you could think of like XLM. I know that the Flare team has talked about Doge, all of these assets that have pretty large market caps, but there's not a whole lot to do with them there. Another way that we differ is Eigenlayer and Symbiotic, at least initially, had been focusing a lot on network security. So network security and things that are more algorithmically computable, let's say. So what I want to say is that Eigenlayer had been really focusing a lot on how can Eigenlayer restaked ETH be used to secure, let's say, some sort of processing protocol that's maybe doing like ZK proofs. And so essentially, how can the restaked ETH secure to make sure that these proofs are happening correctly on chain? So it's a very technical and fairly narrow scope environment that they were trying to secure. But Where we're focusing on is economic security. So while we can also provide security for different things such as this on EigenLayer, our main focus is really trying to address problems that from research at Centauro and our work there, we have seen they are use cases that people are really trying to target. So I think the biggest one is an example of like insurance. So let's say someone is deploying their assets into a lending market and they want to insure their assets against something like an exploit or sort of economic attack that results in bad debt on the protocol. In Firelight, what we would be targeting is being able to provide this insurance. So these are normally black swan events that don't happen that often, but if they were to happen, the security from Firelight would help address the exploits and make the people who were affected by the exploits whole. So it's changing the risk profiles of what like traditionally restaking was aiming to be. While, as I said, Firelight will be able to both look at securing network security type things and these more algorithmically processed items. We're also looking at things that are maybe a bit more subjective, but provide a lot of real world use cases for DeFi and then also even TradFi as well.
Okay, so you touched a lot about how Firelight's going to be ensuring economically secured services. Maybe just for someone who's new to Firelight, could you differentiate between phase one and phase two? So the introductory vault as well as then economically secured services and how all of that ties back in together.
Yeah, so the phase one, which is what we'll be launching fairly shortly after the launch of the F Assets portal, is more so like a capital formation phase where we are looking to attract XRP holders into staking into our vault. This is important because phase two, where we do have these service providers that are looking to rent out this economic security from Firelight, they need to see that there is some capital already available to address what sort of needs and conditions that they might be wanting to secure. So that's why there's this two-phased approach. Phase one, the nice thing about it is that because in phase one, essentially users are just going to be depositing into a vault on Firelight, and then they'll get this liquid staking token, STXRP. There is no connection to these economic secured services just yet. And what this means is that during this phase one, essentially there won't be any slashing risks involved. So this is kind of I think for a lot of users, slashing is something that's a bit confusing and sounds a bit scary. So phase one, there aren't any slashing risks because we're not yet connected to this, the economically secured services. And so this means that users can test out how it works to bring their XRP onto Flare, how it works when they deposit their FXRP, as it's called on Flare, into the vault and receive this LST, this liquid staking token that they can use in DeFi to earn yields on things like lending it out or maybe borrowing stable coins and doing something else with that, or deploying this into a DEX pool to earn some of the fees as people are trading the assets. And then in phase two, this is where slashing will happen, and this is further down the road. So we will be announcing these things quite clearly once they arrive. But this is where you start to see like real earnings as these services rent the security from the different vaults, from like the STXRP vault that's on Firelight, and they will be paying fees directly to Firelight, which gets transferred. It gets relayed to all of the stakers. So you're able to earn while depositing your XRP into the vault. to secure these services. But then on top of it, you're also getting this LST that allows you to use the staked capital in the broader DeFi ecosystem. So you're able to still LP in a DEX pool and earn fees there, but then you're also earning underlying fees for the economic secured services that are renting the security from the vault.
All right. Okay. Thanks for the overview. Is there a minimum amount of XRP someone would need to stake to get started?
No, you just want to make sure that you know it makes sense for how much the gas you're paying to make the deposit. But with gas being so cheap on Flare, you can deposit as little or as much as you want. So you'll get, once you deposit whatever FXRP you deposit in the vault, you'll get the equivalent amount as this liquid staking token STXRP on the back end.
Okay. And can we maybe do a bit of a deep dive into how vaults work on Firelight? In phase two, will each vault have a different liquid staking token? And maybe could you elaborate a little bit a little bit about how this would be different from phase one, in which there's only a Firelight curated vault?
Yeah, definitely. So how Firelight will work is that there will be these vaults where users can deposit their assets. Each of these vaults will essentially have a vault curator that is an entity that is managing that is directing the security allocations to different economically secured services. So the main vault is this initial vault, the STXRP vault. This vault will be one vault that is going to secure a certain amount of these economically secured services and be receiving fees from the different services. Now, once we get to phase two, where this all becomes relevant, instead of just having the one vault that is this initial vault in phase one, this will be opened up where we can start to add more vaults, whether it's vaults that are originated from Firelight or external parties that want to create a vault to perform some security on specific economic services. This will be opened, so there will be multiple vaults available. Each of these vaults might be allocating a different amount of their security to different types of ESSs. So you'll see that the risk profiles of these will be different because one vault might only be connected to one ESS that has high fees being paid to it, but also a high risk of slashing. There might be another vault that has 3 or 4 economically secured services that it's securing that have lower slash risks, but also in turn maybe a lower fee that they're earning. So the yields that you would see on these different vaults are going to vary based on the slash risks that are involved. And each of them will have their own liquid staking token. So the core vault that we in phase one will be STXRP, but then these other vaults will have a different token attached to it that the supply of that token is going to be correlated to the underlying assets that have been staked in that vault. And the naming will be up to whatever vault curator is launching that vault. And so each of these vaults will have different characteristics, and for users, it will allow them to make choices on how they want to stake their XRP or other assets that might come down the pipeline, and be able to choose a profile that matches their risk appetite.
Okay, thank you for that. We've also been getting a lot of questions about slashing. Could you maybe describe how slashing works on Firelight in phase two? Thanks.
Yeah, so slashing, it's easily the most complex component of any restaking or staking design. And it's the thing that everybody wants to know about, of course, because they don't want to lose their assets due to a slashing event. But how slashing is going to work is essentially when we come back to what I was explaining about the vaults, every vault will decide, the vault curators will decide the ESSs that they're going to secure and the allocation. And what's going on in the background in this sort of process is that the economically secured services, they'll say, we want to rent security from your vault. We have these slashing conditions. So if these different types of things happen, we will say that this vault needs to be slashed. And then whatever the slashing process is will be enacted on the vault, which means that the slashed assets will be quote unquote lost from the vault. So if a user is staking 10 XRP into a vault that gets slashed, 10% more or less, essentially they would have one of their XRP slashed from that vault. And so the value of their staked assets will be lower. So how this works is the slashing events are coordinated between the vaults, the vault curator, and the ESSs with an operator that's confirming if slashing has happened or not in between. And so for users that are staking, they don't necessarily have to worry about, like, if I stake into a vault, is there another person staking into this vault that's a bad actor? But they do want to make a choice on the vaults that they decide to stake into based on what sort of slash risks there are for the different economically secured services that are being provided. So something like an insurance vault maybe has a higher slash risk, where a vault that's only validating certain blockchain data points is maybe going to have a lower slash risk on it. And it also depends on how much of the vault is allocated to each of these services. So if you're in a vault that has multiple ESSs it secures, one of them is insurance, but it's only 5 or 10%, then the amount of slashing that could happen from that specific insurance ESS is only that 5 to 10% portion. And so your risks are mitigated. And, while this is newer territory for the blockchain space, the restaking and slashing designs here, at least looking at many of the staking blockchains where people secure the blockchain by staking their assets, slashing events are quite rare in general. So this is something to keep in mind, that you might not necessarily be expecting slashing to happen every week on the vault. It might happen once a year. It might never happen. And so it's really important for the users to decide if there is, this exposure. Are you comfortable with it at the allocation percentage that the vault has determined? And if you want to deploy into that vault. But it opens up a lot of opportunities for lots of fees being rewarded to the stakers, and a lot of new use cases for services and protocols to be built on top of Firelight.
Okay, that made a lot of sense. Okay, another quick question. How does the price of STXRP relate to the price of FXRP? Is it one-to-one? How does it work?
Yeah, so initially the exchange rate, especially in phase one, is just going to be one-to-one, because there's no slashing risk. There's no real chance of this deviating. And so when you stake one FXRP, you'll see that the STXRP is the same, like, let's say, US dollar price. And if you want to redeem your STXRP and get your FXRP back, it would be at this one-to-one conversion ratio. So as the price of FXRP and XRP fluctuate, you should see the STXRP keeping the same prices. And then when phase two comes along and slashing is possible, there is the chance, as I was saying in the example previously, that maybe you have staked 10 FXRP, So that means that at least at the beginning, you get 10 STXRP. But if a slashing event happens, you'll still be holding 10 STXRP, but the value when you go to redeem will be less just because there's less value in the vault because of this slashing event. So that's the way to think of how the pricing is related between the two assets.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've talked a lot about how in phase one there's Firelight points and you can accumulate points. So what are Firelight points essentially, and how do they accumulate?
Yeah, so Firelight points are really at the core, it's just an accounting mechanism to track the participation that each user has had in the ecosystem. The Firelight points you'll see in the dashboard once the web app launches, that you'll see your points accumulating based on the amount of STXRP you're holding or have deployed in DeFi. There is no like redemption or claiming mechanism on these points. These points are just being used to track your participation, and in the future, these points will correlate to rewards that the protocol will be giving out, or that you'll be able to earn from Firelight in the future. So it's a pretty simple design. Essentially, the more STXRP you're holding, the more points you're accumulating. And the earlier you stake, the more points you'll have relative to others who stake later.
Okay, and before we open the floor for a couple of quick questions, I have one last question. So we're kind of at the beginning of the vision of Firelight, and we're saying that it extends far beyond XRP. So what does this mean? Could you share some plans that we have on the roadmap?
Yeah, I've been hinting to them throughout the call here, and I think the biggest item is that there are other assets that could eventually jump on. We wanted to prioritize XRP along with the Flare team because we see it as it is one of the largest crypto assets that really is untapped in terms of being able to access DeFi. But there are several other ones. If you look down the list of CoinGecko, you can see that there are several other assets that are in the same place as XRP, not being able to access DeFi in a way that has been quite common in the Ethereum world. And so I think this is the biggest move forward. Of course, alongside that is, all of this works if we have these economically secured services building on top of Firelight and becoming successful themselves. So from our standpoint, making sure that there are engaging with developers who want to integrate and connect and build something on top of Firelight and rent the security from the XRP stakers, and then also working on things ourselves to make sure that the ecosystem is robust and there is a real true value for XRP holders, because I think sometimes XRP holders have felt a bit burned on some of the potential integrations and things that they've heard in the past. And hopefully we're looking to break that cycle. So this is really something that XRP users will be able to use and earn fees and rewards potentially from their staked XRP.
Okay, thank you very much, Gabriel. If anyone has any questions specific to Firelight that don't really pertain to when it's launching, please feel free to drop them in the comments or in the chat, and Gabriel or I will pick up on them. And if not on this space, we'll definitely have another one. Um, Okay. Thank you very much, Gabriel. And thank you all for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments or reach out to us on X. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining and hope to see you all again soon.
Okay, guys, that pretty much wraps it up, I think. I guess it's finished. I thought that was pretty insightful. One thing I did want to clear up when I was going through this here about the staked XRP architecture, we did find out that, of course, these are going to be redeemable one for one. FXRP and the originating asset XRP, that's through the F asset protocol, one to one always. But during this chat, we did find out that staked XRP may not always be redeemable one for one with FXRP, and that is because of the slashing risk. That's something to take note of. And I actually had a question over on X, and that was to do with the expected yields. Now, there was a space recently. In fact, actually, it was a interview over on YouTube from the Wolf of Wall Street, and the potential yield for XRP is looking somewhere in the region of 4 to 7%, if I recall correctly. That's just something to note. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I quite enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the slashing explanation. I probably will expand on that in the future because I know it's a topic that people may be confused about, but it's something that I can elaborate on as we get closer to the launch of Firelight. In fact, let me just quickly show you some of the posts that I was creating while listening in. We go down here, we've got this. This is something that I took away from this. There's obviously going to be two phases. The first one is launched shortly after F Asset goes live on the Flare network, which again is as early as the 22nd of September. Basically, what you will be able to do is you will mint FXRP as expected and deposit that FXRP into the Firelight vault and receive staked XRP. You're going to be able to earn yield on DeFi. This is probably going to be through other platforms as well, such as decentralized exchanges, by providing liquidity. And there is zero slashing risk because it's not connected to economic secured services, which is what comes in phase 2. Just something to note here, there are going to be many vaults. This is not just vaults created by Firelight, but other vaults as well created by other entities, and they're going to have details about the slashing risks associated. And also we did find out that slashing is not a regular occurrence, so that is something to take note. Moving on to phase 2 of the Firelight roadmap, economic secured services, or ESSs, they receive earnings from fees generated by Firelight from networks seeking security via their platform, or I should say networks and services. So this is where the slashing risks would occur, and you're going to have all of the details about each vault before you join, right? So there's no mandatory joining of various vaults. You get to choose as a user and assess through your own risk tolerance which one you want to provide to. You can assume that the riskier vaults provide higher yields. But yeah, that's pretty much that in a nutshell. I just want to go back here to the points because I did create a post on this. What are Firelight points? Basically, an accounting mechanism that tracks participation in the Firelight ecosystem. Firelight points, as seen on the dashboard, will correlate with rewards from Firelight at a future date. I just noticed I had a spelling mistake there. Can I edit it? Happy days. Give me 1 second just so I can do this. Perfect. Right. Something else that I did want to talk about here was to do with Firelight. And I just wanted to show you what the dashboard actually looks like, because we did get a bit of a sneak preview, if I'm not mistaken. Here we go. This is what it looks like. It talks about your vaults, your positions, the total TVL, your Firelight points. Here are all the different vaults, as you can see. Manager Firelight. This is probably going to be the most popular one to start with. In fact, it's going to be the only one to start with. But we can see or can expect these vaults to expand as the service becomes more popular. Right, that is pretty much the video, guys. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I know that things are going to get very interesting in the near future. Please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to join the Patreon group, because we will be launching the Mastermind group over in Discord, which is exclusive for Patreon members and the YouTube members, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, with that in mind, I would like to thank you all so much for watching. Do enjoy the rest of your week. I'll catch you Thursday for the weekly news updates. And until then, I'm out.
We have liftoff.